Today we are learning how to solve equations with rational numbers. So today we're doing one-step equations. Tomorrow, or whenever the next lesson is going to be two-step equations. So one-step equations are fairly simple. Hopefully you remember these from previous years. But what we do is we look at the original problem, okay, and we look to the side with the variable. And we see what the constant is doing. Remember, the constant is the number without the variable. So 4.6 is our constant. And 4.6 is positive. So because it's positive, and we are going to do the opposite, and the opposite is subtract. So we're going to subtract 4.6 from both sides. So we're going to minus 4.6. We're going to minus 4.6. And if you're wondering why, it's because we want the variable to be by itself, because we want to know what m equals. And right now, 4.6 is being added to m, and we want it away from m, so we have to subtract it. So that cancels the 4.6's, because 4.6 minus 4.6 is 0. And then we solve the other side, and we do 9 minus 4.6, which is 4.4. The next problem, B, says 8.2p equals negative 32.8. Well, the 8.2p, there's a coefficient and a variable, and when there's a coefficient in front of a variable, it means that coefficient is being times by the variable, and the opposite of multiply is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by the coefficient because we want the number to be gone. So we're going to divide by 8.2. Okay, when we do that, 8.2 divided by 8.2 equals 1. 1p is equal to p, okay? The coefficient of 1 does not change the variable value, just like whenever you multiply a number by 1, the value doesn't change. 7 times 1 is still 7. So when we divide 32.8 divided by 8.2, we get 4. Now remember, there was a negative, and one negative number when you divide yields a negative answer. So the answer is negative 4. And on C, we have x divided by 1.2, a fraction is another form of division, equals 15. The opposite of dividing a variable by a number is to multiply the variable by the number. So we're going to multiply by the denominator, so 1.2. And when we do that, we're going to multiply the right and the left by 1.2. Oops, they did that for me below. I forget that sometimes I don't have to have all that like I normally would if I wasn't using these nice little notes. So we have 1.2, and then we have 1.2 here. These cancel out because 1.2 divided by 1.2 is 1, and it gives us just x. And then we multiply 1.2 by 15, and we get 18. Now some of you are going to be wondering, well, do I have to show my work for that? The answer is yes. Deal. So the next example we have, n plus 2 over 7 equals negative 3/7. Now, they show you a little bit different. The constant in this case is 2/7, right? Because it's a fraction, they show you a little bit different than they did above. So we are going to, because it was adding, we're going to subtract 2/7 from both sides. And when we do that, they like to line it up in one line. So they like to say minus 2/7 here and minus 2/7 here, because that's how you look at fractions when you add and subtract them. It just makes it a little easier from left to right. So negative 2/7 plus 2/7, because one's positive and one's negative, they cancel out to 0, which leaves us with just n. And then we have negative 3/7 minus 2/7. Now they're both negative numbers. So because they're both negative numbers, we can add them, 3 plus 2, and get 5. Keep our denominator the same, but because we're adding or subtracting and not multiplying, our answer is still negative. Okay, next problem we have is y equals negative 1/6. Just kidding, y minus 1/6 equals 2/3. So this part here is our constant is negative 1/6, because it's on the side with the variable. The opposite of subtracting is adding, so we're going to add 1/6 to both sides. For some whatever reason, they put the 1/6 at the beginning. Okay, so we need to do both sides. This positive 1/6 and this negative 1/6, they cancel out because they're opposites, and opposites equal 0. But now we need to find a common denominator because we have denominators of 3 and 6, and we can't add those, can we? And hopefully you know that the common denominator of 3 and 6 is 6, because 3 goes into 6, so 6 is the larger number, and it's the common denominator. So 3 times what gets us 6? 2. So we have to multiply this by 2 over 2, and we get 4 over 6 plus 1/6. And then we can simplify or add and get y equals 5, 6. And the last problem for this example is 5, 6x equals 5, 8. Now remember, the 5, 6 is the coefficient, and whenever there's a coefficient, it means we're multiplying by the variable. The opposite of multiply is divide. So we're actually going to be dividing. However, it's a fraction, and when we divide a fraction, we multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So I would add that because you might get a little confused, I don't know. So they have a bunch of this written out for you. They have the 5, 6x right here, and then they multiplied it by the reciprocal of 6 over 5. Now those all cancel, which leaves us with just x. And then they took the 5/8 here, and they multiplied it by 6/5 as well, because you multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which in this case is 6 over 5. And when they did that, they found that the 5's could cancel, these could cancel here, and that when they have 8 and 6, that their common factor is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so you get an answer of 3/4. Okay. Example 3. Mr. Rios wants to prepare a dessert but only has 2 2/3 tablespoons of sugar. If each serving of the dessert has 2/3 tablespoons of sugar, how many servings can he make for the party? Now this is kind of like the one we did yesterday. First thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to convert our mixed number into an improper fraction. And when we do that, they set that up for you. You're going to take 2 times 3 or 3 times 2, however you want to look at that, and get 6 plus 2 is 8. And our denominator is going to be the same. So we're going to take the amount of sugar in one serving times the total number of servings, which is what we're looking for, equaling the amount of sugar that Mr. Rios has. And when you do that, you're going to make this 2/3 into your coefficient. So it's 2/3 times x, or 2/3 x equals 8 over 3. Now we're going to look and solve this how we did example C right above. And we're going to have divide both sides by 2 over 3. But then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/2. So if you want to not look, cross that out and put 2/3 here, this might be more helpful. So it's the 2/3 x. We're multiplying both sides by the reciprocal, which is 3 over 2. So we're going to multiply this by, oh no. I don't know what just happened. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, we're going to multiply that by 3. Oh, now I need my pen. Okay. By 3 over 2. And we're going to multiply the 8/3 by 3 over 2. These 3's cancel, these 2's cancel, which leaves us with just x. These 3's can cancel and become just a 1. And the 8 and the 2 can cancel because 2 goes into 8 4 times. So x equals 4 over 1, or just simply 4. So Mr. Rios can make 4 servings of whatever he's making. Okay. And then you have your check it out. Don't take forever.